Hi there. It's great to be here with Gary Caldwell. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Don. How you doing?
Very well, very well. How are you dealing with this lockdown?
Hanging in there. Homeschooling's been a huge challenge. With 3 kids. My girlfriend's got 2, so at times there's 5 kids homeschooling in the one house. But I must admit, the kids have been great. They've really kind of got on with it, and it's probably more difficult for them. But we've been going out on walks, and I've been taking my older boys out running and on the bike. So it's been good in a different way, but obviously in some ways as well.
And where are you just now? Did you mention to me you were down Manchester way?
Yeah, I'm in Alderley Edge in Cheshire. I've been down here when I first moved to Wigan in 2010. I came to this area, which is about 40 minutes south of Wigan, and I love it here. I don't think I would ever move from here. The kids, 2 of my kids were born down here, and they're all settled at school now. So I'm pretty settled. I think I would always kind of have a base around here.
And as we were saying earlier, it's just such a great part of the world for football, isn't it? It's almost like an epicentre of clubs and players around that Lancashire going into Yorkshire area.
Yeah, it is. There's so many teams and different leagues as well. Like you've got your Rochdale and Bury's. Obviously, Bury went out kind of business, but they were in League 1, League 2, so you could go to that kind of level and watch them. And then up, even like Stoke's only 35, 40 minutes from my house, and you can then go up to Blackburn and Burnley and Blackpool. It's all very close in terms of clubs, and even to get to London in the train's an hour and 50 minutes. So it's a really good base for getting all over.
Brilliant. So, I use, and you would have seen the slide I always use when I'm doing in the SFA, especially in the A or B licence. It's Sir Bobby Robson speaking about, what football is, and it's more than the people that's in it. It's more than just the teams. There's something about football when, especially say when someone takes you to a game when you're a kid, whether it be your brother or your dad or your mom, and you fall in love with the game. Can you remember when you first fell in love with football?
I can't remember a specific moment where I kind of would say I fell in love. The kind of first World Cup I remember was 1990 when I was 8, and I remember that Italian 90, the fantastic music, watching all the games. Obviously Scotland were there, which was great for a young Scottish boy with hopes of one day playing for my country. But I can't remember a specific moment. But like you say, there is a love for the game. It's something that once it gets inside you, it's very difficult to kind of let it go. There's always that passion to either watch football or be involved in football. And it's a fantastic game to play, and it's a fantastic game to be involved in.
Agree. And who kind of growing up really influenced you as a player then?
Well, my dad was a junior player and played kind of locally, played for East Stirling. He actually showed me a programme recently where he played against Partick Thistle. And he was in the programme, so he was very proud to show me that he played against Thistle. So he was a big influence on me and my brother, and I was fortunate that I had an older brother who was obviously a footballer as well, but we always, went to the park together, kicked the ball at the back. I've got my second oldest boy is, he's really into it, but his brother isn't, so he's not got that somebody to pass the ball with constantly, and I had that, and I was very fortunate that me and my brother could develop and grow up together.
Yeah, and that's such a brilliant thing to have, isn't it? Especially a brother that's a bit older that you can always chase, isn't it? You could. Was he a centre? What position did your brother play?
He was centre half as well. My dad was a centre half. We both, when we were younger, we both played midfield. It was actually my dad that always said, whenever we went to something when we were really young, he said, "Say you're a midfielder," just because that would get the attack and the defence. It gets everything. You need to do everything. But I remember when we were probably about 12, 13, because we were starting to grow, everyone said, "You'll be a centre back once you kind of grow up." So yeah, we were all centre halves, and I think it's great that my brother always, like you say, did achieve something, and then I had that target. That I think it's easier when you go into something blind, and if you're going out to run a marathon and just say I'm going for a time, and it's very difficult to gauge your pace and how you run that. But when I was growing up, my brother got in the Scotland schoolboys team and was captain. So that was my minimum level. I had to do that. I had to win the Victory Shield. Then I had to get a contract. Then I had to play for, it was just something that he gave me that challenge, and I wanted to do that and more. So I was fortunate in that regard.
And that, that is such a brilliant story and illustration, isn't it, of... no one ever really does anything alone. Sometimes people think, I did it all myself. And you don't, as you're describing, it was, before you, your dad laid your path, and then your brother. And you can it's great to have something to aspire to. When did you first realise you would be a professional? Did you always have that aspiration to be a professional?
Yeah, I think probably when we were about 12, 13. Like I said, Stephen got in the Scotland schoolboys, and I got in it, and that was when we kind of started going to clubs as well, Celtic and Rangers and Aberdeen, Dundee United, Aberdeen, Hearts. We went to loads of clubs in Scotland, then started coming down to clubs in England, and that was when we thought there might be something in this. But I don't think I never felt like I had made it. And that is, I think, a great lesson for younger players, that even when I came to Wigan at 28-year-old, I didn't know everything. I hadn't made it. I felt like I always had to prove myself and always had to do more. And that was something that stayed with me right till the very end of my career. So I was always wasn't happy with what I did and wanted to do more. So that, especially in football, because once you think you've cracked it in football, it can very quickly... you can get egg in your face, or mistakes will happen if complacency sets in. So I was always striving to learn and to be better right throughout my career.
And I think that's a great description, because certainly everyone that I know that's usually excellent, which you are at anything you would do, they almost have that a positive discontent is the best way I could put it. That however well you're doing, you're always looking to think, I wonder if I can get better. I wonder what I can do this. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think in my kind of in moments on my own, I was like, outwardly, I always gave the perception of I'm doing all right here. I never showed negativity. I never wanted to show weakness. If I had a bad game, I wouldn't announce it to the world. When I got my own, though, I'd sit myself and say, that wasn't good enough. You need to improve here, or you need to do this better. But outwardly, I always wanted to give, body language and mindset that, I'm in control. I know what I'm doing. So I think, you need that kind of balance of a mental toughness and resolve that you show to the outside world, but inwardly, you have to be honest with yourself and try and constantly improve.
I think that's a great point as well. I was speaking to John Rankin last week, and Ranks, of course, went from being in the youth setup in Manchester United back to up the road to Ross County. And Ranks put it a great way, and it really struck me. He said, I never really played for Manchester United. He says, I never played for Manchester United. I played for, I was a youth player at Manchester United. That I played at Ross County first team. And he said, so many young players now, if they're signed for a big club at youth level, think they've made it. Do you think that's more true nowadays than it was when you were growing up, or was it always there?
Massively, and I have the exact same experience of I never played for Newcastle. I was a Newcastle youth team, reserve team player, and ultimately got released from there. But that doesn't define you. That then has to be that kind of drive and that motivation to come back.
There we are. And what about the younger players now? Do you think it's always been like that, Barry?
I think so. I think younger players now, I see I go to academy games and you see Man City players walking in with a Man City tracksuit and they believe they play for Man City. And I think Ranks' mindset, my own mindset that I had, is the one you should have. You haven't played, and even when you play one game for the first team, you aren't a first team player. And that's why I had that mentality through my career, that I was always wanting to do better and do more. And that should be your mentality. I go back to when I first got into youth team, it was, I called it the wash bag culture. It was when wash bags started becoming a thing for men to carry about. And my mum got me a Burberry wash bag.
Yeah.
It was fashionable back 20 years ago. I still had that wash bag when I finished my career. Yeah. And the boys at Wigan used to take great pride and have a great laugh at my expense at taking the mickey out. Burberry wash bag, which was clearly out of fashion. 2015, 2014, but that was something that meant a lot to me, to say that no, this is my wash bag, and it's kind of came my whole career. Whereas now you see boys, they get the Louis Vuitton or the Gucci, or it changes every week. Like, do you want to be a footballer to kind of walk about like that, or is it what you do in the pitch that's going to kind of be what you're known for? So I would always big on things like that.
I think that's that's a great story about the wash bag, actually, isn't it? Because for you it becomes it becomes something you've carried through your whole story. And we were speaking earlier, because when I was saying to you before we came on, for most people you never see, or you only remember bits of people's stories. So I would remember you as a Celtic player. Then of course you've got Hibs, Newcastle way before that as well, so people only get a glimpse of everyone's story, don't they? They don't see a lot of the hard work, the real intensities or the downsides that go with the game. No,
and I think that's what you mentioned earlier about you're not an individual, and that is why it's so important you have a team, your family, a support network round about you that can help with the bad days, because I think every footballer will say there's more bad days than good days. And you need support at those times. You need people to put an arm around you. You need people to kind of kick you up the backside at times and say you need to do more. So unless you've got that good support network round about you, then it's very difficult, because I don't believe you do it on your own. You do it kind of with help from others and picking up little bits of information and help all along the way.
And it's, I totally agree with that. The first book I wrote, I've written a few books, and the first one I wrote, I sent a copy to an old science teacher who used to take our primary school football team when I was 11. And he said something to me that I would never forget all my life, and he wouldn't realise he even said it. And once I wrote the book, I sent him a copy, because he doesn't use a computer or anything, just thanking him. And he sent me a written letter back, and said, "Thanks, I was just trying to pass on a bit of what I knew to you all." And I think that's the magic of football and the influence people has.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think coaches have a massive influence, especially a youth team, younger coach. When you're a younger player, the coaches at that kind of level have a huge influence on your career, but more importantly, I think they have an influence on you as a person and the standards that they set. I remember Tommy Craig once. I mean, this wouldn't happen now. I think it still should, but I'm sure HR would get involved now. But we came into the training ground, and normally you had your Adidas training kit, immaculately piled, towel, slips, shorts, socks, everything. Everything was there for you. And we came in one morning, and the changing room had kit all over the floor, everywhere, soaking. And we all kind of looked about and sat, never got changed. Tommy came in about 10:05 after, we had arrived. And he said, there was a few swear words, but he said, "This is how this place was left the last night." He said, "So you can put it on and train in it today." So we had to kind of pick up. You didn't know if it was your or so. We had to put it on, but it taught me a massive lesson in it. And when my last club was Wigan, when I used to take my kit off after a game, I used to take it over and hand it to the kit man or put it in the skip, because 20 years ago, somebody taught me that, that's the right thing to do. And you see it all the time. Change rooms are just covered in kit. But Tommy taught us a massive lesson that day. So that's the influence a coach can have, not just in football, but in how you live your life.
Okay. And what, that's a great example as well. I know your philosophy is about people as well as players, I would say. Is who else, when you became a professional, who were the big influences on how you played the game?
Well, Alan Irvine was my youth team coach. I was very fortunate at Newcastle. Kenny Dalglish was the manager when I signed, but he got sacked after about 2 months. But obviously that wasn't kind of my level at that time. I had Alan Irvine and Tommy Craig as youth team and reserve team coach, which was a fantastic education in life, but brilliant football education. Alan Irvine for me is one of the best Scottish coaches in the last 20, 30 years. Because his detail, he almost taught me, he taught me everything. I didn't really learn anything new after working with Alan Irvine. All I did was gain experience and kind of learn from mistakes and different things. In terms of how to play the game, defensively, how to attack, how to pass, how to mark, everything about how to play the game, Alan Irvine covered it in like 18 months, and it was a sensational education, and somebody I still speak to and learn from all the time on coaching.
Yeah. What a great testament to Alan that is, then, that he's had that impact on you. And it sounds as if, again, something about the modern life, so many people, I think, grab hold of, and it's a trendy thing to say sometimes, is the marginal gains, the 1% to 2%, but they only count if you get the fundamentals really well, I think.
Without a doubt, and Alan was brilliant at that, and breaking the game down and in every segment. I remember once we played a game, a youth team game, and he wanted us to play for the back, and I mean, this is 20 years ago now as well, so it wasn't as fashionable as it is now, but he was, adamant on that. And I remember one game, I think we lost 3-0, where playing out for the back and giving the ball up the field, playing straight passes and losing the ball. And on the Monday morning, there was no shouting or that after the game because we lost. There was an explanation of what went wrong, and then Monday morning he showed us how to drop it into centre forwards and how and when to hit diagonals. Brilliant. And then he used to say, now it's up to you. That's what you do. You have to practice and practice and practice and practice. And it was something I practiced every day for the rest of my career, hitting diagonals. And that was because so then once you hit that diagonal, the defence drops off, there's space in the field and you can go and play. So he used to say, I don't know when you have to do it, you have to assess that. But now that we've played through all the time, now we're going to start playing over. And it just gave you ammunition like that constantly to then have almost like a toolbox that you can solve your own problems. And I think that's a great coach as well. You can't tell players all the time because ultimately when you're on the park, players need to make good decisions, and you have to give them the toolbox to say, you need to use these different solutions to problems that arise in the game.
I think that's a great description, Gary, because it sounds as if Alan there, from how he was coaching and teaching you as well, was ahead of his times now. Because you hear it now, and certainly when I'm involved in coaching, you were looking to do, isn't it, independent decision makers on the park, and everyone. Sometimes you'll notice players will say sometimes but when do I use it? And you say, well, only you can tell that, and they think you're trying to wind them up. Of course, you're not, isn't it?
No, that's what I felt like. Then experience then comes in, So then you make mistakes. Every footballer makes mistakes, and then it's about recognising the mistake, being honest with yourself, and saying, next time I'm going to do this, or next time I'll do that, and then that's how you improve and get better throughout your career. You're not actually learning new skills. No. Just learning from mistakes and the different scenarios and situations that come up. You then have the better solutions to those problems.
It sounds as if that's just a phenomenal football education you had there. And from first meeting you when we were on the courses, I think you've come across as really thoughtful about the game. Was the transition into coaching quite natural for you?
Yeah, it was. When I came to Wigan, I was 28, but I had really bad kind of problems around my hip area, my groins and that, and I'd kind of been assessed by different people, never really got to the problem. Then I came to Wigan in the January that summer. I seen a guy, Professor Griffin, down in Coventry, and he said I needed double hip surgery. So he done two operations I had in the one summer. It was 5 weeks apart, and it was quite severe. When he went in, I'd been playing with it probably from kind of 24, and probably should have had a smaller operation when I was 24. But because I'd played so many games in so many years, the hips were quite damaged. I needed micro fractures and all different things. And even looking back again, hindsight's a great thing, but came back far too quick from that surgery. Actually, was back in about 4 months, when really one should probably take 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And I had two. So I had an operation, 5 weeks on crutches, another operation, 5 weeks on crutches. When I got off the crutches, I was almost kind of hunched over. I'd been on crutches for so long. So I had to learn to walk and stand up, and my hip flexors had to get really loosened off. Yeah. But rushed back, eager to play, felt like I was in the kind of prime of my career in terms of fitness and experience. And actually rushed back played in the infamous 4-6-0 at Czech Republic under Craig Levine. Yeah. He had kept in touch and was desperate for that game, and came back to playing that game. But felt great for about 18 months, 2 years after that. Yeah. And then my left one started going again, and had a surgery on it that was never the same again. I only played 4 games, I think, after my third operation, and that was what really propelled me into coaching, because I always wanted to do it, but my focus was on my career. When I played, I felt like, thinking about other things would only distract from what I was doing. So did my badges. It was actually the summer of my first operation, started my A licence, and then kind of progressed through from there. Okay.
I think just before we talk about your coaching experience, I don't think a lot of people realise the wear and tear on a modern footballer's body as well. As sometimes thinks it's it's not like it's nothing, but you just play football and you go on, and you've described it just in graphic detail there, just the wear and tear on your body at a young age.
Yeah, no, I've had double hip replacement when I was 35 a couple of years ago, because I was struggling to coach. They were that bad. So I think some people get lucky and you don't have any injuries, but I had 3 hip surgeries, a knee, I had like a microfracture in my knee, broken foot, broken cheekbone. Like the list is kind of. I think that does go overlooked sometimes. That when you finish playing, you should. I'm only 37 now. You should be a fit, healthy kind of middle-aged man, and you're actually not, because you're carrying all these ailments. This lockdown, I've been trying to go out running, but it's going to kill me. So it is something that probably does go unnoticed. It does have a lot of wear and tear physically on your body.
Yeah, I think the athletic demands of the game is huge. Really, I know a lot of people will say, there's longer periods off and everything, but I think the athleticism and that is massive nowadays, at the level that you played at as well. And so what's been your experience coaching? How did you develop it? I know it's a cliche, but it's true. Did you develop your own kind of coaching philosophy, or how you wanted to play the game?
Yeah, I think all your experiences rub off on you in a positive or negative way. Yeah. And you take that experience and use it. But ultimately, to be a good coach or manager, you have to be yourself. It's very difficult to coach something you don't believe in. Yeah. It's very difficult to sell something to a group of players if you don't actually believe in it, because you're trying to convince a group of players to play a certain way, then you have to believe in it 100%. Because if you don't, they'll smell that and they won't carry out what you want. So I think Gordon Strachan kind of rubbed off a lot on me at Celtic in terms of his standards, in terms of fitness, in terms of mentality, and how you approach games and how you approach every day. And then Roberto Martinez had a massive impact on me in terms of how you play the game. Overloads, playing between lines, positional play. I was 28 when I came to Wigan, and he showed me a different way of training, and he showed me a different way of analysis of how to play and believe in one style of play, no matter who you're playing against. We used to go to Old Trafford, to Anfield, to Stamford Bridge, and we would go and play them toe-to-toe every game. And some people might say that's madness, but for me, I thought it was amazing that he could, which he knew were a kind of lesser standard of player, man for man. But we went to Anfield and won. We beat Man United at home. We beat Chelsea. We beat Man City in the FA Cup final because he knew he could cause them problems. We couldn't do it consistently because ultimately we didn't have the quality of player. But in a one-off game, his style of play was, and his tactical analysis of the opposition and the weakness and how you exploit that was phenomenal.
And I think that's a brilliant example, Gary, isn't it? Because as Roberto there, he would have to have the courage to do it, but then you would feel that belief that you could do it from him as well. I can hear that in your voice, isn't it? One way we can do this.
He's the best manager I've ever had at convincing you something. He is the best by a mile. Because, you know what football's like. You're going to Old Trafford, it's like, oh, we're going to get beat today. That's what everyone's saying. But he used to give team talks and prepare you so well. He used to believe we can go here and win. And even there would be times we lost. We did lose like 4-0 one game, but if you were at the game, you'd have went, they were unlucky there. It wasn't a 4-0. We're in the game up till like the 75th minute. Then we lost 3 goals late one time. But we always gave teams a tactical problem because it has, detailed analysis, his detailed training and how he went about that. And that rubbed off on me a lot in terms of, how I then coach and how I want to play the game.
Brilliant. That's incredible. And what have you learned from your coaching journey and your managing journey so far? What's the big lessons that you've learned so far? Because you've done a lot already.
Yeah, I have. I was 32 when I got the Wigan manager's job. I'd been coaching and I'd been helping Uwe Rosler was the first manager that got me involved with the academy, and I would sit in the stand for first team games and report back at half time and at full time. So he was brilliant in giving me that education. I was only 31-year-old at the time, and gave me a real inside look at how management works and coaching and how you prepare, and that from not from a player, more from kind of the coach's side of it. And then worked in the academy and ended up in the Wigan job at 32-year-old. So it was a kind of sink or swim moment where I don't think you're ever ready for management, but you have to then kind of go with it and learn on the job almost. And I've had good and bad experiences from them. And just want more.
And I think when you're speaking there, it's interesting that, how quickly you went from, a player into the coaching role. And you're right, isn't it? It's what I call that oh shit moment, that we all think when we're thrown out of our comfort zones, you get on with it. But I was speaking to John Hughes last week, and John said something brilliant. And I'm thinking of when you said that. He said, when I'm trying to put a point across or develop my game, I'm always thinking like I would as a player. I would thinking, does that make sense to me? And I would imagine that would have been actually a good unconscious strength you would have had going into coaching so young.
Yeah, I think I was. especially early when the Wigan job in particular, I was very much the players, because ultimately, when I took over, I was basically in the changing room one day, then manager the next day. So that was very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's the first group of players, I think, almost tried too much because I was their teammate. They kind of wanted to do well for me, but they were trying too hard. And I was fortunate as well that I only had 5 games. We were bottom in the league. I think we were 7 points for safety with 5 games to go, so it was almost mission impossible. We gave it a go, but ultimately got relegated. And then the next year, I managed to kind of change the full squad. So pretty much, I think there was 4 players left from the changing room that I was involved in to the team that I coached that won League One. So that was... The situation was fortunate that I was allowed to do that. And then the players that were coming in didn't really see me as the player, or they just see me as the manager. And I could then stamp my authority on how I wanted the team to play and how I felt the club needed to move forward.
And that is, I've spoke to many players that's had that experience, isn't it? One day you're in the dressing room, it's your mates. The next day, sometimes you're the coach or the manager, and it's a difficult transition for most people, isn't it? It's and then to go on, as you said, and bring your other players. That's a perception thing, isn't it? They're able to see you in a different way.
Yeah, to your first point, I think we've all been in a changing room or a meeting room, and the manager's standing up there, and he maybe says something. You think, what is he saying that for? Or that wasn't very good. And yeah, it's very difficult when you're there. It's easy to criticise and say, "Oh, you can do this or that." But when you stand up in front of a group of players, like I said, you have to convince them. They have to believe every word you say. They have to believe. They have to carry out what you're asking them to do to the letter. And to do that, I have so much respect for every manager, because it's not an easy thing to do, especially when it's your kind of teammates. But it's definitely something that I love, and it's something that, I'm thankful for the opportunities that I've had up until now to be able to do that.
Tell me a little bit what you're doing just now, and is it individual coaching? Are you doing team coaching just now, or what is it that you're doing just now within your coaching brief?
Yeah, I'm doing a few different things. I've been helping out at my little boys plays at an academy. Mark Stott, the guy that actually owns it, has just bought Stockport County, and I went in and coached a bit there, and thinking of doing a bit more coaching there. I enjoy coaching, and that's the one thing when you're out of a job is you've no team. You need a team to coach. So the last time I was out of work, I went into Winslow High School, the local high school, just to coach a group of players. And then this time I've helped out with Jaden's team to get me coaching. But I've also been working just individually with players alongside my agent, and helping players, younger players in particular, to develop, to progress, looking at analysis of all their games, giving them feedback. And I've really enjoyed doing that, and it's been really positive response from the players. They've bought into it a lot, which has been good, and I felt like it's had an impact.
Brilliant. So would you see yourself there, Gary, and you've said it there, is very much as on the part of coaching. You love the coaching and working things out and being with the players, rather than, how it is now. Some people are quite distinct to say, no, I'm a manager, I don't do that. But you love the coaching as well as the other sides of it.
Without a doubt, yeah. I think, I've had 3 managers' jobs now, and I actually was coaching in the academy, and I enjoyed coaching, and you don't know where your path's going to go in life. You just have to roll with it and go with it. Once you become a manager, I think you sometimes get kind of tarred with that brush. You just want to be a manager. But I think my strengths as a manager were coaching, was analysis, was development of players, was kind of, like I said about Roberto, he rubbed a lot off on me. I like watching games and analysing strengths and weaknesses, and coming up with coaching, a week's kind of coaching to prepare for that game. And so I think very much my strength is coaching, is being on the grass, is analysing games. And the other bits of management, that we all know, kind of the political side of it, is probably the bit that I struggled with when I was a manager. So I'm open to anything, really. Like we said at the very beginning, football is our passion. We love it. And just being involved in football is something that I love. So I'm open to different things and not just to be the manager somewhere again.
That sounds great, and thanks very much for kind of sharing your experiences. And I think there's some gems there, not just for players but for coaches as well. And if people want to go and find out a bit about what you're doing just now, or get in contact with you about coaching or managing, where's the best place to go? Is it LinkedIn or?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. It's social media is not something that I've been right into, but I've got into it a bit, and I'm thinking of kind of getting a website and stuff like that. Since January, I've been doing it with the players individually, and it's something that we're thinking of progressing. So I might get a website and stuff like that moving forward. But anything on LinkedIn, I'm happy to help. I've had a few coaches on there already message me and stuff, which is great. I love kind of helping coaches and different people, so anything like that, then I'd love to help.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for your time, Gary. It's been great speaking to you.
Brilliant, Don. Thanks very much.
Cheers.